Welcome to Community Church Unitarian Universalist worship service, where we gather each week beyond our four walls to be together in these unique times. I am Reverend Jacqueline Luck, CCUU member and worship associate this morning. Community Church is a progressive, open-minded, and inclusive religious community. All who are on a spiritual search for truth and meaning are welcome. Ours is a faith in action as we do the work of justice and elevate compassion in our quest to live ethically in recognition of the inherent worth and dignity of all. We believe we do not have to think alike to love alike. We are very glad to have you join us in this of our virtual service of Worth Giving, and pray and hope soon we'll all be able to gather again within these walls. Our board president, Kathy Larimer, has a couple announcements for us. Oh, I'm sorry. You want to wait for that?
If you would like to be at church during the pandemic, there is a way. Join the tech team. Let us know if you would like to join that team, and we'll be happy to get you trained. Okay.
This morning we have Stacey Mitchell bringing us her message. It's proud to be. Oh, I should never have tried this. Here. Proud to be maladjusted. I can't wait for that, having been maladjusted for so many years. Stacey is a candidate for the ministry within the Unitarian Universalist Association. She recently completed her M.Div from Union Theological Seminary. Stacey currently serves as Chaplain-in-Residence at the University Medical Center, New Orleans. Her career before engaging in Unitarian Universalism ministry has included working for the international peace organization, the Fellowship of Reconciliation. She serves as head of finance, for a well-known Buddhist monastery in Canada, and working for the environmental group, the Sierra Club. Stacey also has been a practicing Buddhist for 15 years. She is inspired by nature, including the animal kingdoms, garden, wilderness, beaches, and now excited to explore the great places this area of Louisiana has to offer. And we are very glad that she is here and willing to share her message with us this morning. It is our custom to light a chalice, invoking hope and eternal truth to our worship. Please join us in singing the words, "We Light This Flame" by member Bert Brunson. CCUU's Director of Religious Education, Cynthia Ramirez, will now read our words for all ages.
Good morning, everyone. I just want to remind you before I start my story that we have our wonderful float here for the crew of Kids for Change. This is the fundraiser that the RE of all three churches are contributing to. So what it is empty your pockets of change, and every week just put it in the bucket here, or you also can give online. And of course, I forgot the stuff, but it should be on the Community Matters, and I believe it's on one of the slides that you can give to the cause. And they're giving the money to homelessness, they did the democratic process, and they voted which one they wanted to give to. So this was decorated by the RE children in Gnu. So here's my message. When I was 10, as a student in Gateway Elementary, I was led to the auditorium for a presentation on Black History Month. Visiting children were all around me. I always loved getting out of the classroom watching an assembly. I waited, and finally there was an old film showing thousands of people gathered on what looked like somewhere in Washington, D.C. There were people talking, and I wasn't really sure about what they were saying, but then I saw this wonderful, beautiful man with a great voice start to speak. I could not take my eyes off of him. I could feel what he was saying was transformative. I don't know why, but I just started to cry. I remember these words. I have a dream today. This will be the day when all God's children will be able to sing with new meaning. My country, 'tis of thee. Sweet land of liberty, of thee I sing. Land where my father died, land where the pilgrims pride. From every mountainside, let freedom ring. And if America is to be a great nation, this must become true. So let freedom ring from the prestigious hilltops of New Hampshire. Let freedom ring from the mighty mountains of New York. Let freedom ring from the heightening Alleghenies of Pennsylvania. Let freedom ring from the snow-capped Rockies of Colorado. Let freedom ring from the curvaceous slopes of California. But not only that, let freedom ring from Stone Mountain of Georgia. Let freedom ring from the Lookout Mountain of Tennessee. Let freedom ring from every hill and molehill of Mississippi. From every mountainside, let freedom ring. And when we allow freedom to ring, when we let it ring from every city and every hamlet, from every state and every city, we will be able to speed up that day when all God's children, black, white, black men, white men, Jews and Gentiles, Protestants and Catholics will be able to join hands and sing in the words of the old Negro spiritual. Free at last, great God Almighty, we are free at last. Something inside of me shifted. I could see his dream, and I chose to see. I chose to see his vision, and that day I began to look for like-minded people. I remember the teachers talking amongst themselves, wondering why I was crying. They said, "Oh, she has older brothers and sisters, so she is more mature than the rest." I think they also saw the change in me that pivotal day. Today, I still cry when I hear Martin's words. But unfortunately, Martin's dreams have not come true. So today, especially today, we must fight for his dream because freedom is so fragile. I ask you to please continue the fight and make Martin's dream come true. It can be done, and it must be done. Thank you.
Thank you, Cynthia, for that beautiful, moving story. Our first reading this morning is by Langston Hughes. Let America be America again. Let America be America again. Let it be the dream it used to be. Let it be the pioneer on the plain, seeking a home where he himself is free. America never was America to me. Let America be the dream, the dreamer's dream, to let it be that great, strong land of love where never kings connive nor tyrants scheme, that any man be crushed by one above. It never was America to me. Oh, let my land be a land where liberty is crowned with no false patriotic wreath, but opportunity is real and life is free. Equality is in the air we breathe. There's never been equality for me, nor freedom in this homeland of the free. Say, who are you that mumbles in the dark? And who are you that draws from your veil across the stars? I am the poor white fooled and pushed apart. I am the Negro bearing slave scars. I am the red man driven from the land. I am the immigrant clutching the hope I seek and finding only the same old stupid plan of dog eat dog, of mighty crush the weak. I am the young man full of strength and hope, tangled in that ancient endless chain of profit, power, gain, and grab the land. Of grab the gold, of grab the ways of satisfying need, of work the men, of take the pay, of owning everything for one's own greed. I am the father bondsman to the soil. I am the worker sold to the machine. I am the Negro servant to you all. I am the people humble, hungry, mean, hungry yet today despite the dream. Beaten yet today, O pioneers. I am the man who never got ahead, the poorest worker bartered through the years. Yet I'm the one who dreamt our dream. In the old world, while still a serf of kings who dreamt a dream so strong, so brave, so true, that even yet its mighty daring sings in every brick and stone, in every furrow turned, that's made America the land it has become. Oh, I'm the man who sailed those early seas in search of what I meant to be my home, for I'm the one who left dark Ireland's shore, and Poland's plain, and England's grassy lea, and torn from black Africa's strand, I came to build a homeland of the free. The free? Who said free? Not me. Surely not me. The millions on relief today, the millions shot down when we strike, the millions who have nothing for our pay, for all the dreams we've dreamed and all the songs we've sung and all the hopes we've held and all the flags we've hung. The millions who have nothing for our pay except the dream that's almost dead today. Oh, let America be America again, the land that never has been yet, and yet must be. The land where every man is free, the land that's mine, the poor man's, Indians, Negroes, me. Who made America, whose sweat and blood, whose faith and pain, whose hand at the foundry, whose plow in the rain must bring back our mighty dream again. Sure, call me any ugly name you choose. The steel of freedom does not stain. For those who live like leeches on the people's lives, we must take back our land again, America. Oh yes, I say it plain, America never was America to me. And yet I swear this oath, America will be. Out of the wreck and ruin of our gangster death, the rape and rot of graft and stealth and lies, we, the people, must redeem the land, the mines, the plants, the rivers, the mountains, and the endless plain. All the stretch of these great green states, and make America again.
Like all congregations with congregational polity, Community Unitarian Universalist Church is a self-sustaining congregation. The generosity of its members and its friends enable this congregation to fulfill its purpose in doing the sacred work of bringing justice, spirituality, and compassion to our community and beyond. You can make donations this morning during our time of gathering offerings online at ccuunola.org/stewardship or by texting 504-370-2659. Enter GIVE and you'll be prompted. You can also, of course, mail a check to 6690 Fleur de Lis Drive, New Orleans, 70124. The congregation, of whom there are only few of us, are invited to put your donations in the offering bowl this morning. Everyone's support is needed and appreciated at this time.
Thank you.
In this time in our service, we continue to weave together the fabric of our community as we take an opportunity to share a joy and a sorrow with one another. If you're participating online, you can put your joy or concern in the chat box, and we'll try to see if we can read it. A candle will be lit with each sentiment. I know you want to share yours.
Yes, we have some concerns. On Thursday, Lizzie Jenkins had a heart attack. She subsequently had a stent put in, and she's back home and reportedly doing well. Jim O'Neill says that Vera's back pain was relieved by the kyphoplasty. She's slowly recovering. They are grateful for your concern, prayers, and healing energy. Our longtime member, Dorothy Smith, will be moving to join family in Wisconsin on February 3rd. Dorothy has been a member of the Finance Committee for many, many years. We will miss her. And of course, we have great concern and love for all three of you.
I wanted to mention this morning our brothers and sisters of the Jewish faith after the situation in Dallas yesterday, which I know has put a chill through all religious groups. And so we hold them in our hearts and support. We've heard from Elizabeth Killeen. She's one of our newer CCUU members and an extremely active member. And she writes to say that her daughter turns 4 today, and she's very excited. And you have some more? Can you just read them?
Elizabeth Trotter says that Rosa and her kids still have COVID. So please contact Liz if you can donate some food.
And I light two last candles, one for those joys which have remained silent, and also for those sorrows which we all bear a certain level of grief and sorrow right now, and so we especially hold everyone, but especially those of you that are grieving deeply today.
Our second reading for this morning comes from Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. In 1966, the Unitarian Universalist Association's distinguished guest at General Assembly was the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. He gave a speech entitled, "Don't Sleep Through the Revolution." And this is an excerpt from that speech. I talk a great deal about the need for a kind of divine consent. And I always mention that there are certain technical words within every science which become stereotypes and cliches. Modern psychology has a word that has become common. It is the word maladjusted. We read a great deal about it. It is the ringing cry of modern child psychology. And certainly we all want to live the well-adjusted life and avoid neurotic personalities. But I must say to you this evening, my friends, there are some things in our nation and in our world to which I am proud to be maladjusted. And I call upon you to be maladjusted, and all people of goodwill to be maladjusted to these things until the good society is realized. I never intend to adjust myself to segregation and discrimination. I never intend to become adjusted to religious bigotry. I never intend to adjust myself to economic conditions that will take necessities from many to give luxuries to the few and leave millions of people perishing on a lonely island of poverty in the midst of a vast ocean of prosperity. I must honestly say, however much criticism it brings, that I never intend to adjust myself to the madness of militarism and to the self-defeating effects of physical violence. It is no longer a choice of nonviolence and violence, but nonviolence and non-existence. The alternative of disarmament under a strong United Nations, the alternative to negotiated settlement in Vietnam, and the point of coming to that condition of not bombing the earth. And our earthly habitat can be transformed into an inferno that even the mind of Dante could not imagine. Yes, I must confess that I believe firmly that our world is in dire need of a new organization, the International Association for the Advancement of Creative Maladjustment. Men and women as maladjusted as the prophet Amos, who in the midst of injustices of his day cried out in the words that echo across centuries, "Let justice roll down like waters of and righteousness like a mighty stream." As maladjusted as Abraham Lincoln, who had the vision to see that this nation could not survive half slave and half free. As maladjusted as Thomas Jefferson, who in the midst of an age amazingly adjusted to slavery, cried in the words lifted to cosmic proportions, we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed with their Creator and certain inalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. As maladjusted as Jesus of Nazareth, who could say to the men and women of his day, "He who lives by the sword will perish by the sword." Through such maladjustment, we will be able to emerge from the bleak and desolate midnight of man's inhumanity to man into the bright and glittering daybreak of freedom and justice. So my sermon for you this morning takes those words of Martin Luther King, proud to be maladjusted. As with other Unitarian Universalists, my own spiritual identity includes social and environmental justice work, which is a personal spiritual path for me. This has included being an environmental activist, an anti-war protester, an advocate for LGBTQ rights, and as a counter-protester in Charlottesville, Virginia in 2017. My call to ministry has been the compounding experience of being witness to the suffering of our planet, our communities, and neighbors who continue to encounter injustice and harm done by those who obtain power. I can hold social activism and my spiritual traditions, which is an eclectic mix of Buddhism, ecology, transcendental meditation, New Thought, and my Unitarian Universalist heritage. And within that faith, I can hold all this in Unitarian Universalism. The 7 principles of our Unitarian Universalist faith bind us in our common experience for a more just and equitable world. For example, our second principle is justice, equity, and compassion in human relations. Unitarian Universalist thought doesn't have one principle that contradicts another, including the 6th and 7th. The goal of world community with peace, liberty, and justice for all, and respect for the interdependent web of all of existence of which we are part. The ideals of social justice are often a key common denominator within our Unitarian Universalist faith. Tomorrow, of course, is Martin Luther King Jr. Day. Recognizing a profound prophet of the 20th century whose words transcend generations in seeking justice and liberation for all. Martin Luther King calls us not only to engage in right moral action, but pushes us in our moral code to see how our faith, however we individually choose to define it, is our overall view of what gives us meaning here on our earth with each other. We opened with the words of his from his General Assembly speech in 1966. Dr. King also said in around the same time a speech entitled "The Other America," and this is a small excerpt from that speech. And so today, we are struggling for something which says we demand genuine equality. It is not merely a struggle against extremist behavior toward Negroes, and I'm convinced that many of the very people who supported us in the struggle in the South are not willing to go all the way now. I came to see this in a very difficult and painful way in Chicago over the last year, where I lived and worked. Some of the people who came quickly to march with us in Selma and Birmingham weren't active around Chicago. And I came to see that so many people who supported morally and even financially what we were doing in Birmingham and Selma were really outraged against extremist behavior of Bull Connor and Jim Clark toward Negroes, rather than believing in genuine equality for Negroes. And I think this is what we've got to see now. And this is what makes the struggle so much more difficult. End of quote. So, are we ready to respond to the words of Martin Luther King that gave society these words 50 years ago? Society didn't go all the way in the 60s, but are we willing to go all the way now? Did it take the murders of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, just to name 3 in a heinous list of people of color dying through hateful and racist actions every day just in the last 2 years, not to mention all the deaths of names we may never know over the decades since that speech from Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King? The words in The Other America, given in 1967, about the vile actions of Bull Connor, white supremacist and overseer of the Birmingham Police Department, and Jim Clark, KKK supporter and sheriff of Dallas County, where Selma is located. Those actions of Connor and Clark sickened enough Americans to demand change at that time, including white America, but not enough to address the more hidden and subversive actions of white supremacy that have plagued this country at that time and has continued to this day. As we flash forward 50 years to our current years of Trump, Marjorie Greene Taylor, and others who inflame hate and contribute to racism in this country. Are there enough of us taking action to what this moment in time demands of us? Martin Luther King famously wrote in his letter from a Birmingham jail that injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. We are caught in an inescapable network of mutuality tied in a single garment of destiny. Whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly. Never again can we afford to live with a narrow provincial outsider agitator idea. Anyone who lives in the United States can never be considered an outsider anywhere within its boundaries. That quote is well known, but the last couple sentences are often cut off, mentioning the problem of the outside agitator idea, as it could be juxtaposed to a collective action. We need to be proudly maladjusted together. In the spirit of working for justice and the love that Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King called for all his siblings on earth to engage in, reminds me of what Buddhist Reverend Angel Kyoto Williams says. Love and justice are not two. Without inner change, there can be no outer change. Without collective change, no change matters. So what is required of us in our inner lives to manifest something of a different quality collectively to the outside world? For each of us, that answer will be different. But it seems we are in a situation in our current reality of something greater being called of us right now in society. To be in collective association of maladjusted creatives. If we believe what Kyoto Williams says is true, that without collective change, no change matters, we begin to see the consequence in our individual selves that are intricately linked to a collective community, in our interdependent web of life that our seventh principle states. We are called to be proudly maladjusted together. Within Buddhism, there is a bodhisattva principle that as Buddhists, it is a responsibility to support the liberation of all before any notion of liberating the concept of a self can be obtained. Shantideva, an esteemed Buddhist monk from the 8th century, has said in the Buddhist classic, The Way of the Bodhisattva, all the suffering in the world comes from seeking pleasure for oneself. All the happiness in the world comes from seeking pleasure for others. It has come clear for me personally over the years that there is an artificial divide of individual liberation versus collective liberation and happiness. And I ponder what further actions can be taken to be a contributor to a more collective, compassionate, and just world. We can look at injustice in our lifetimes to see where justice is needed. George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Elijah McClain, Ahmaud Arbery, and countless other blacks in this country continue to die under white supremacy of this country, victims again of crime against humanity taking the form of modern-day lynchings. Those of us who have privilege in our society must use it for justice and must engage in evil racist acts that are happening to our black siblings, our Native American siblings whose land was stolen from them along with genocide. As long as these heinous racist acts against others occur in our country, since its founding until today, we need to claim being proudly maladjusted in working for collective liberation. Reverend Schuyler Vogel from Fourth Universalist Church in New York City gave a lecture at the 2020 Unitarian Universalist General Assembly. He said, quote, "Solidarity is not just talk and protests. We white people are good at those things, but it is not enough. It is not enough unless we show up a month after the press stops showing up to our vigils. It is not enough unless we call our elected officials up again and again and again and again to demand that black and brown people stop dying at the hands, knees, and guns of police until the streets are just and safe. And if our elected officials don't listen, in the words of the great late Congressman John Lewis, we make good trouble. It is what is demanded of us in these dystopian times. Protests against anti-democratic efforts may be necessary, but also a gateway that can invite us into a larger and holy cause. We are called to be proudly maladjusted together, not just in 1966, but now. I think of how divided this nation is over freedom and democracy right now. Who wins in the loss of a democracy, and what meaningful potential may remain if we lose a democracy, however flawed it may be at times? It's been a fragile democracy that has left many behind in equality and equity. And yet many of us seem to have failed in seeing how fragile that democracy was until January 6, 2021, when insurrection occurred in attacking fundamental democratic processes. Actions that we have taken as Unitarian Universalists in the wish for justice for all is now threatened by people who want to undermine democracy itself. We can see the threat and regression of democracy in the past, in the present, and maybe on the horizon. Voting rights stifled, a woman's right to choose slowly being gutted, lack of police reform, lack of equal access to affordable health care, and this list could get longer, not shorter, if current trends of the last 5 years keep up with anti-democratic efforts actively underway in many states in this country as a whole. I know our congregations have already been responding in a myriad of ways, but has there ever been a point where there has been enough engagement and where the work has been sufficient enough for justice and a healthy democracy? In all the killings of Black fathers, mothers, siblings, daughters, and sons who have died through a white supremacy culture, well, it isn't a society that Unitarian Universalists at all would condone. We are called upon these times to do something more, be something more, even as we approach a third year in this pandemic. We must transcend comfort zones, break patterns of isolation that were already in place pre-pandemic, with our hope, with our masks, with our booster shots, and with our love. We can delve into our own individual spiritual paths to find strength, motivation, and love for the universe in this world, and our faith to contribute to the interconnectedness of our humanity. We transform with each other and being together in community on an adventure in collective liberation, on a journey of being proudly maladjusted with each other. We can take to the streets and protest, talk to our neighbors about personal stories that might have them reconsider how they vote in the future, get involved and get out the vote efforts, do volunteer work, or do actions that protect our democracy and voting rights, so that equality for everyone can be seen, felt, and heard. And being witness to injustice, may we work towards being witnesses to justice everywhere. And when all else fails, I leave you with the words of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King. One has not only a legal but a moral responsibility to obey just laws. Conversely, one has a moral responsibility to disobey unjust laws. May it be so, and amen. So let us respond to the needs of this world today in being proudly maladjusted together on a path of collective liberation together.